We're going to talk about a little bit of a difference of what's actually being taught nowadays regarding the Columbian Exchange. The Columbian Exchange is something that if you ever take any type of history test, this is going to be on a history test. This could be on a college entrance exam. The Columbian Exchange is one of the most important events that has occurred right along the birth of Christ, right along the Reformation, and the destruction of the Spanish Armada. This changed the entire world. Yes?
Is this on a different...
Yes, this is a new section, a new topic. Age of Discovery, Columbian Exchange. We are not going to go into any detail about the explorers. If we had 18 weeks, we certainly would, but we don't. The most important part of this time period, post 1492, so this is after, this is the result of the discovery of the New World. So we dealt with everything up to 1492, now we're dealing with after 1492. The consequences of the discovery of the New World. So first thing we need to discuss is New World. It's actually a Latin word, which I am not going to pronounce well, mundus novus. That is a Latin word that was used back in, let's see here, look at my notes here, by an explorer who was writing to his friend in the spring of 1503, and he was describing the New World. And so the New World is what North and South America become known as. Of course, those who were living here didn't see it as a new world, but remember, this is from the perspective of Europeans. So this is a new world to the Europeans. In this explorer's letter, it contains arguably the most explicit, or the first explicit, articulation in print of the hypothesis that these lands were discovered by European navigators to the west. And it was not the edges of Asia as they first thought. Christopher Columbus believed he was on the Asian continent. That's why he named the natives Indians. He actually thought he was in India. This guy says, no, this is not the Asian continent. This is a whole new world that we did not know existed. Not on any of our maps. The discovery of the New World fundamentally, absolutely, completely changed the world. Okay. So, post 1500, everywhere the Europeans attempted to settle, they attempted to change it to look like Europe. The places today that still resembles, or let me back up here, rephrase it another way. There are areas where Europeans attempted to colonize, but they still remain genetically the same as they were before the New World was discovered. There are places where the world has been completely changed to look more like Europe, on the other hand. So if some of those areas is North America. North America completely looks Europeanized. Southern South America does. South Africa and New Zealand does. They do not resemble what they once looked like prior to European discovery. Culture, everything about it is different. Yes. It is. That's right. Now it's full industry. Yep. So, yeah, you don't need to write this down other than maybe make some notes about it. Understand, I do believe there is a test question about this. I'm not going to ask you countries, though to back up your position, you're going to want to identify countries as your example. But China is a great example. Many European countries tried to colonize in China, and they could not. They were not successful. And China remained virtually genetically Chinese, really until after 1976. Definitely, you see that up through the 1940s until the Communist Revolution was finally won, and Mao brought in a bunch of Russian technology and stuff. But those of you who took Chinese history should remember, in 1900, they were living like they were in 1400. Nothing hardly changed in China. Central America still predominantly is like Central America was before 1492. Very little has changed there. Their language, their culture, the way they farm, the way they raise their kids, it's essentially the same. North Africa, Central Africa, great examples there. Europeans tried to settle Africa. They were not successful. Africans still live much like they used to. There's a lot of tribes. They struggle. They have huge struggles in this world because they are so far behind. India is another one that has stayed fairly consistent Indian versus European. Why do you think that is? Why do you think some areas were converted and become Europeanized and others were not? What might be some factors that would prevent that from happening? Resources? Explain that, Rusty.
Like it, I don't know, like any place that they involved it, but like they go there and then they realize, like they went there looking for something and they realize it doesn't have what they need.
Okay, so they don't stay?
Yeah, they just took off.
Okay, because they didn't have what they were looking for. They weren't able to get natural resources. Okay. They fought back. Okay. Could very well be. That would mean in order for them to win, they'd have to be a superior force of some sort.
Maybe just couldn't adapt to the change.
Ah, really?
Climate.
I don't mean that to be sarcastic, Mia, but you are spot on. Very good job. By the way, I've been teaching this for 3 years, teaching it this way, and you're the only one that's ever nailed it. In fact, the number one reason Europeans were not successful in some of these other regions is because they were not able to farm using European techniques. The condition of the land or the seasons or other factors prevented them from being successful. If they cannot feed themselves, they do not stay. And that's what happens. They get to these places, we can't farm this. We cannot figure out how to use our techniques here. And they bail. Now, are there other factors? You all are right. Those are other factors that played a role, though I would argue the military would be probably the least one because the Europeans have the biggest, strongest armies at this time. It's one reason why they're able to do what they do. But certainly, even Great Britain conquered the Zulus in Africa. It took a horrendous war, the Zulu Wars, but they still won there.
They take in there though? The
Zulus, there's still some Zulus left.
Or they beat the crap out of it?
No, not at the end of the day. Did they win some battles? Sure, but they still lost. They lost the war. Well, I think the Zulus were highly respected for their fighting capability. All right. Religion, ideals, and trade transferred all over the world. And let me rephrase this. European religions, ideals, and trade transferred all over the world. What made this possible? Well, Mia's already told us. Wherever they could farm using their techniques, they were able to stay. But through this involvement, European ideals, construction, tools, machinery, firearms, everything that the Europeans had was being transferred throughout the world. While the Chinese made gunpowder, it was the Europeans that perfected it. It was Chinese that first used paper. It was the Europeans that perfected it. I'm just saying. Often you'll hear that Europe. No. That's separate. Paper, Chinese developed paper first, not Gutenberg. But Gutenberg perfected the printing. We perfected. Chinese did not have cannons. The Europeans did.
Didn't he make a movable printing type?
Gutenberg, yes. Yep.
I learned that from him.
And if it wasn't for Gutenberg, Martin Luther would have never been able to accomplish what he accomplished.
Well, yeah, how would you
Not
do
Martin
that?
Luther King. And without Martin Luther, you don't have Martin Luther King. We already asked the question, what is it? So, post-Columbian voyage.
Oh,
Here's what Europeans brought to the New World. You don't have to write this down, just understand how vast it was. Horses, chickens, coffee. Oh yes, coffee was not started in Central America. Colombian coffee is not original to Colombia. Barley, lettuce, lemons, olives, daffodils. Oh, crabgrass. Boy, aren't we glad we brought that over. Crabgrass?
not to sit on it, and then you guys want to.
It's a sticky, pointy grass. It's got burrs on it that gets in your socks. Have you ever walked through something and you get,
The little brown things?
yep, uh-huh.
Oh.
Yeah, you don't like, we don't like crabgrass. Stickers, yep. How about honeybees? Honeybees are not native here.
You're not?
Nope. Wheat, cabbage, pears, oranges, lilacs, tulips, Kentucky bluegrass. Could you imagine that? Kentucky bluegrass is not native to Kentucky? But it's not. How about sheep? English flies. Yeah. Especially when you live where we live underneath a dairy. Rice, turnips, peaches.
Didn't they bring mosquitoes as well?
That I doubt we did. That's one animal I wish Noah didn't bring on the ark. Carnations, bananas. Oh, bananas. Not native to Central or South America. Dandelions. Did you know dandelions is something you can eat?
Yep.
It's actually a food, not a weed. You eat the leaves like spinach.
Ew. You know when they like come out of the garden and like milk? The white stuff comes out of the bottom?
Yep. But here is some other stuff. All of this is good. All of this is good.
Did the flies come over with the...
Well, maybe flies
all
aren't.
that?
Came with their cattle. Came with their stock and their manure and stuff.
Probably saving mosquitoes on their
But, with the good, here comes the unintended consequences. Yes, Casey.
What are a daffodil?
A daffodil is a flower. Smallpox, typhus, measles, malaria, diphtheria, whooping cough. These are all European diseases that did not exist prior to 1492. Remember, understanding bacteria is something new in the world. There is absolutely no way Europeans would have known. They were bringing disease with them to people who had no immunity to it at all. Yes, Europeans do. You and I have a lot of immunity to bugs that if we went to China or Africa, we'd get sick with because we don't have immunity to them. But people could come here and get sick from us because we're used to it. Our bodies have built up immunities, whereas other people have not. Smallpox is actually not too terribly different from chickenpox, but smallpox is something you get from touch. Somebody who's got the spore on them, you touch it and you get it. It's a very terrible, lots of people. In fact, more people have probably died in the Americas with smallpox than anything else other than malaria. Smallpox is probably the number one killer for the natives. Yeah. Now, there are some accounts of Europeans doing that. There's very few accounts, but there are some. Now, here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. You will be taught in college and everywhere else, including your textbooks, that Europeans murdered, slaughtered, killed millions of natives. And they'll say smallpox was the... They did not do that. Unintended consequences. If it was intended, that's different. Putting them in blankets and giving them to natives, that is on purpose. But when you come here and you have no idea, you know nothing about disease and bacteria, you cannot blame another group of people for murder or genocide. Rats is the bubonic plague, which, by the way, they have discovered in California is back. Probably not those who have received shots, but we have medication that will stop. But you're going to get sick before they figure it out. You're going to be hurting. My point about all of this, though, is please understand, you're going to hear the rest of your life that Europeans deliberately killed Native Americans with smallpox in particular. That just is not truthful. Millions died for sure. In fact, they even argue, anthropologists argue about 90% of all natives are dead within 200 years because of disease. That is unintended. In fact, there are tribes that they have discovered a couple years ago in Brazil that was never known of before. And they have passed a law outlawing anybody to go see them out of fear of bringing a disease to them.
Aren't they on like a separate island?
No, that's in Indonesia, and over the Christmas break, a missionary tried to get on that island to go preach to them, and they killed them. And the Indonesian government has a law where nobody's allowed to go to that island for that reason as well. One is that they're very hostile, but
You can't blame them.
yeah. So there are natives who knows nothing but their primitive 2,000, 10,000-year-old lifestyle. There's pictures. They've taken pictures of them with their big old longbows, and they're wearing loincloths. But if we was to go and visit them and try to, talk with them, we run a very good chance of killing them because of the bacteria that we carry that we don't get sick from would wipe them out in a heartbeat. So when I went to China, for example, because of water and whatever else, I ended up contacting my doctor and the CDC, the Central for Disease Control, to see if there were shots I was going to need to take that I would not normally have in the United States. And they said, no, just don't drink the water. And you have to drink bottled water. And even in my hotel, it's a 5-star hotel, and it says, do not drink water from the sink. That means when you brush your teeth, you use bottled water. You don't drink the water in China. Yes, the Chinese people can. Yeah. Their immune system can handle that. But I'd be sitting on the commode or maybe even in the shower the rest of the trip. Yeah, or throwing up probably out of both ends. I don't know what's in the water. Huh? I've heard that too. Yep. So you have to be very careful when you go to other countries and have other people come. That's in government class we talk about immigration. That's the other side. That's the unintended consequences of unchecked immigration. Is you could be bringing in bugs that we have eradicated in this country, but if we have, say, bring people in with tuberculosis, that kind of stuff, that will run rampant because that's airborne.
Like when they were freaking out about the Ebola thing?
Yes, and Zika virus, Ebola. N1H1, because that's, or, no, that's the flu. Hang on, what's the West Nile? That's real bad out here in Parma. Bird flu. So anything that is airborne or bloodborne is a bad deal because you can't control it.
Did they find a cure for Ebola?
I think so, if they catch it soon enough.
And
That's the problem, is catching it.
Isn't it that Ebola would appear, but then it kind of
It-
and then comes back?
I think so, because people think it's a cold or a flu, and they think they're over with it, and they go back to work or go do it, and then boom, it gets them again. And meanwhile, you are transmitting it all over the place. So it's a bad deal. Unintended consequences. Yes, millions of natives died from this, no doubt about it. But it was not deliberate.
you said something about the Indians, like 200 years dying out of that.
In 200 years, some odd million, 90% of the natives died.
Without us being there involved?
No.
Oh, that's why.
Because of disease, because of European diseases. That's why they died. All right.
We tagged it.
So that's what we being Europeans, brought to the New World. What are you doing?
For you to fill out, and then that way I don't forget them because we're due tomorrow.
Well, what's that for?
It's our bathroom pass.
Oh, we'll put that on my desk then.
Okay, can you please call my address one day?
No, I need you.
Want some meat?
No, no. I can't because I got to use my iPad. I'm recording right now, by the way. All right. So the Columbian Exchange. Will, if I don't edit it out. Have me chewing on my daughter right there for the world to hear. So that is one side of the coin of what we call the Columbian Exchange. Lots of stuff came to the New World from Europe. But it's not one-sided. Europe gains as well. In fact, most would argue Europe unquestionably is the bigger gainer. So some of the things Europe now is exposed to is corn, sweet potato. How about the tomato? How many of you thought tomato was an Italian thing? Well, most people believe it is, and it's not. It actually is a South American thing. In fact, for about 200 years, it was grown as a house plant.
They didn't know how
And
to do idea what
they had no idea. They just thought it was a plant. So they would, like you would put a flower in your windowsill. Then somebody decided, hey, I wonder if this red thing would taste good. Crunch. Hey, that's pretty good.
Just like the same question, like how does the salad dressing really count? What did he think?
Yeah, what makes that guy think it's okay to, yeah,
He was drunk and he saw a baby cow doing it. He's like, you know what? I'm thirsty.
maybe. Chili and bell peppers.
Oh, I just started chewing them.
Pumpkins. Huh?
He's misspelled pumpkins.
Good. I knew I had his misspelling somewhere, Waden.
Pumpkins. Don't you just love pumpkins?
We have a disease as well that goes back to Europe. Huh? Guavas. Syphilis.
There's all this good stuff, also syphilis.
Yes. This is like yay, and then, ooh. Syphilis gets transmitted back. But the most important food that gets to Europe is the potato.
Oh, yeah.
It did not come from Idaho. It came from the Peru, what we would call now Peru, up in the highlands. The potato.
The greatest thing
Yes, and it tastes gross.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to want to write this in your notes. The significance of the potato.
Oh, heck yeah.
Could think of a world without the potato, especially in Europe.
Whoa, no French fries.
No French fries for sure. No baked potatoes. But the significance, by the way, this is on the test. I assure you this one's on the test. A lot of you are still talking over here. The significance of the potatoes that it allowed Northern Europeans to have an increase of their calories. Carbohydrates. Northern Europeans have a much shorter growing season than Southern Europeans. As a result, they don't have the nutrients that Southern Europeans have, and as a result of that, they are much shorter. They're much smaller than their Southern counterparts. This calorie intake, within 100 years, they're about 6 inches taller.
So we kept eating, so we keep eating, we don't eat
Taller and rounder in America. Probably more rounder than taller.
Unless you eat raw potatoes.
Yep, well, that's true. Raw potatoes is better for you, but it's still full of carbs. But here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. The other thing about this is potatoes can be grown almost anywhere, even as high as 10,000 feet.
Really?
Yep.
I'm packing too.
Potatoes,
Grow 'em on Mars.
and they can grow on rocky soil.
And Mars.
They can, really? Come on.
Have you never seen The Martian?
Anybody who is listening to this recording right now, this is Angel. This is Angel.
He's not gonna cut it out.
Anywhere, even ice, snow.
Icy.
They can grow even when it's frosty.
Whoa.
It takes longer for them to grow, but potatoes are very hardy. You don't even have to pull them out of the ground. You can leave them in the ground and harvest them all winter long, and they'll be good.
Why potatoes?
Ah, what happened to Ireland? Because Ireland ended up, because of their terrain and their soil and all that, the potato became their staple food. But when you rely on one major food for your food source, what happens when a bug comes in? Wipes them out. So they were essentially a one cash crop society, potato. That was their substance. And when they had the potato blight and it killed all those potatoes, they had no food.
Wait, so is your recording live?
It's not live. I'll edit tonight, some of it, and then I will put it up on the website.
Cut out all like
The long pauses and some of the goofing around I cut out, but Angel, I'll probably leave him in. Make him famous. Yeah, if I do too much editing, it takes me way too long to get it up. Because once I edit it, then I have to turn it into an MP4 file. That takes about an hour. And then once that's ready, then I can upload it to YouTube, and that's another 45 minutes to an hour. Last night at home the second one I put up took, 3 hours. But here it will take about an hour.
Now you're gonna sit there an hour editing this out.
Yeah. Nice thing about it, though, I can spread my sound waves out, and I can see when it goes flat, like a heartbeat goes flat. Then I know I can jump right there, cut it out, and move on. So, all right. Poor diet created malnutrition, often smaller than the counterparts in Southern Europe. We already covered that.
Were people, like, you talk about the height, were they shorter than the
They were already shorter, yes. Shorter than our average height. 5 foot, 5'4". So the most significant food source from the New World is the potato. The most significant disease is syphilis.
And they still have.
There you go. How's that? Oh, hang on. Let's get a couple up there. There you go. Where are you at, Ruby?
I'm in the poor diet.
Poor diet. Okay. I'll give you a little bit more time. When does this bell ring? Oh, that's right. This is the last period of the day. We're going to finish this unit up.
Are we though?
Yep. I think there's only 13 slides.
That's true. One, all this, like, decent people that got doctors. They have, like, things to, like, help with pain, but they have nothing to cure.
It's not cured.
I think syphilis is, although they are having a very difficult time now getting rid of it because it has built up an immunity to the antibiotics. It's not one you want to get. It is a bad deal. There are a couple others that is, yes. There's a couple others that is ongoing. It's the gift that keeps on giving kind of thing. It's not a gift, but I believe that syphilis was a byproduct of why he died. Al Capone.
The most famous gangster in history.
Yep.
Obviously, he's so famous. I think they know MC Davis.
Syphilis. Transferred from the New World to the Old World, completely changed royal households. The ruling class often would engage in extracurricular activities. Let's put it that way. In particular, the men. Yes. And by doing so, as you can imagine, as you've been told all your life, that's a great way to catch something. And they did. Syphilis. Because of syphilis, these men were not able to have children. And untreated, which they were untreated because they had no way of curing it back then, you'd go insane. Ultimately, you'd go insane. Somehow it affects your brain. That is the ultimate end of syphilis, is you go insane and you die from that. But because, ladies and gentlemen, these royal families could not have sons because of syphilis, they did not have heirs to their thrones. Sometimes it depends on the king. Depends on the kingdom, whether it's the daughter or it might be a male cousin or a nephew that takes it. It all depends on the kingdom setup. But even if it is the daughter, you still change the dynasty because the royal blood runs through the male. So if you end up with a female on the throne, her offspring is not of male royal blood.
Do you know who read it?
No. No.
It just originated from the Europeans, or?
It originated from the natives. So, like in South America, the European country who was dominant in South America was Spain. So the Spanish conquistadors, either by mutual agreement or otherwise, had relations with the natives and then brought that back to their girlfriends, their wives, their new girlfriends, their whatevers. Yep. That's right. And it just went from there. So,
Reproduction system?
oh yes, scar tissue is the big one.
Oh.
Yeah, it blocks everything up and destroys your reproductive capability. Europe is wrecked with this gift from the New World. So while it's not one for one in terms of good and bad, the New World wins, Old World loses in this exchange.
When did they name it syphilis?
I do not know.
The guy who sprayed it.
Dr. Syphilis? I don't know.
That's great.
Dr. Chlamydia.
Jeez. This graphic kind of shows in a visual manner the Columbian Exchange.
You ever heard that RV?
We're almost done. Hold on that RV commercial. So the Columbian Exchange, if you're going to describe it, how would you describe it in one or two sentences there, Spencer? Hannah, would you like to help him out? If you're going to explain the Columbian Exchange in one or two sentences, using that as your kind of your clue, how would you describe the Columbian Exchange? Okay, did they bring over just disease? Yeah. I would want you to see not just the disease that came, but also the food that came. Food and animals. Absolutely, there is no such thing as 100% good. You're right.
I feel like the Europeans get the bad
You think why do you think the Europeans got the bad? Because I tell you, you're in the minority.
Not the bad end is in dance, but is in like no, like much ruining of discoveries.
Yes, from that perspective, yes.
And these orders civilization had this dynasty that kept going just to have it ruined by a disease that they got back from bringing disease.
Yep. So from the royal family household, most certainly they took a beating for it. But overall, the civilization that loses is the natives, is the New World. Now, unintentionally, they do. I do absolutely see no evidence that, in fact, we just know for a fact the Europeans knew nothing about bacteria, and it was not until Pasteur, I'm not saying that word right, his name right, but the guy who figured out if you boil milk and kill the bacteria in it, you can drink and save milk longer. And that was not until I think maybe 1700s.
So if you drink the milk like right after you milk the cow, would it
It is good, however, you do run a risk of, when you drink raw milk, of having bacteria in it. Well, when you sit there and milk, it's in the open air. You got skin flakes and stuff falling off the teats and off the bag. No, you eating bad infected cow brains. Yep. Well, they're not called that. They're called teats. Is what they're called. So, when you kill the bacteria in the milk, then you can store it longer. But people had no idea about bacteria until then. So why does all of this matter? Why does the Columbian Exchange matter? Anybody want to give a try?
Because it shaped us now.
Oh, certainly it has. Let me ask you this. What is the most important thing the Europeans bring and they don't even know it? Disease. Disease. Well, it certainly did that. 90 to 95% of natives die as a result of European diseases. European livestock and grains take over the lands. This will come back to bite North America during the Great Depression. The 1930s Great Depression. Huh? No. The next one here. European livestock and grains, particularly the grains. Europeans do extremely well wherever they can take their farming methods with them and use them.
So how we live now is because of the Europeans?
Yes, we most certainly are European here.
What happened, what would happen, like how would we live if the Europeans never showed up?
We wouldn't be here. Yep. Or likely not even in existence because of how many people that died in the wars in Europe. It's very likely most of us would not be here. And neither would our parents or grandparents. World War I would have did it for sure. Yep. But you also got the 30 Years' War. You have the Franco-Prussian War. You have many wars between now and between then and now, that the likelihood of us being alive in our lineage is really small. But let's say Europeans never arrived here, and that aside, we would be all sagebrush out here. Rattlesnakes and all of that would be running wild. It would be just like, look at the Waihi Mountains. Look at the mountain there with no houses, in some section. That's what it would look like. Drive to Twin Falls and just take a look to the side where there's no ranches, just sagebrush. That's right.
There's like no field, it's just plain.
Yep, that's what it would look like on that part of. Take away the road and everything. That's what it would look like. Oh, by then, you're saying? By now? Yeah, it's possible they could have returned. The only society that I'm aware of that ever returned to prominence is Great Britain. They were a world power twice. We can take a look at this map right here, ladies and gentlemen. This is all the major civilizations that's ever existed in the world. And you can see how they get big, how they expand, and they're powerful, and then they, like the Roman Empire, disappear.
Wait, where's ours?
We are, I can't see in my map here. Here's Central and South America. What did you say? Central and South America here. Oh, here's United States. United States, yeah, it is this one right here.
So we're still big?
We're compared to Rome, compared to the United States, we're puny. But we are larger than anyone else right now in terms of our influence and power. But what I like about this map here is it shows how there is no civilization that lasts forever. The greatest on earth was Rome,
So you think
and they're gone.
future will become puny again?
At some point, we'll probably disappear.
But we're already gone.
If this map stays true all the way through time, we will disappear.
I don't know, that one kind of pinkish one lasted for a long time.
This one? This one here.
Pinkish one.
This one?
The long thing was just like beginning of time.
Oh, here.
Yeah.
I can't read. Oh,
that one
Indians. That says Indians. So, are they referring to India or natives? I assume Indian people.
That still doesn't help.
But look how skinny they are. They're virtually nothing compared
What do you mean?
India.
Okay.
India, Asia, India.
But they're still the only ones that have survived that long.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Rome may have been the greatest for that amount of time, but
Yep.
they were pretty.
But no. Well, they may be in existence, but they have no influence. That's the wider you get, the more influence you have. They were.
To be on that.
Well, that's because of how many people. There's some odd billion people in India. So you're going to have some measurement. So, where's my iPad? I think that was all of the slides. There it is up there. Did you get this? If they can settle, they stay. If they cannot, they don't stay. Did you need this one here? Hang on. Is it this one you need it? This one? Don't forget, there's a quiz tomorrow, 10 questions over what we've covered.
Notes are allowed or not allowed?
Notes not necessary.